Greenland, a key to global dominance? Well, not quite. Today we're discussing how this icy island may actually be reshaping geopolitics in ways we never expected.
Oh, that's intriguing. What's going on with Greenland?
Well, it turns out that former President Donald Trump has once again expressed interest in acquiring Greenland for the United States. And let me tell you, it's causing quite a stir across the Atlantic.
Wait a minute. Didn't this already happen a few years ago? I vaguely remember something about Trump wanting to buy Greenland back in 2019.
You're absolutely right. Trump first floated the idea in 2019, and it didn't go over well then. In fact, he ended up canceling a trip to Copenhagen after Denmark's prime minister called the idea absurd. But here's where it gets interesting. He's not letting go of this idea.
So what's different this time? Why is this coming up again now?
Well, during a recent press conference, Trump was asked whether he would commit to avoiding economic or military action to acquire Greenland and the Panama Canal. His response was quite surprising. He said, "No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this, we need them for economic security."
Hold on just a second. Did you say military action? That sounds pretty serious.
It does, doesn't it? And it's not just idle talk. Trump later took to his social media platform, Truth Social, to elaborate on his intentions. He wrote, and I quote, "Greenland is an incredible place, and the people will benefit tremendously if and when it becomes part of our nation. We will protect it and cherish it from a very vicious outside world. Make Greenland great again."
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. But I'm curious, how are European leaders reacting to this?
As you might expect, they're not thrilled. France, in particular, has come out strongly against the idea. Jean-Noël Barrot, France's foreign minister, warned the United States against threatening European Union sovereignty. He made it clear that the EU won't tolerate threats to its borders, saying, "There is obviously no question that the European Union would let other nations of the world attack its sovereign borders, whoever they are."
That sounds like pretty strong language. Are they actually worried about a military conflict?
Well, Barrett did try to downplay the likelihood of actual conflict. He said, "If you're asking me whether I think the United States will invade Greenland, my answer is no. But have we entered into a period of time when it is survival of the fittest? Then my answer is yes." It's an interesting perspective, isn't it?
It really is. It almost sounds like he's more concerned about the broader implications of this kind of rhetoric than about an actual invasion.
I think you're onto something there. It's not just about Greenland itself, but about the principles of sovereignty and international relations. The very idea that a country could consider using military action to acquire territory from an ally is deeply troubling to many European leaders.
And what about Denmark itself? How are they responding to all this?
Denmark has been pretty clear on their position. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen reiterated that Greenland, which has been part of the Danish kingdom for more than 600 years, is not for sale. She said, "I don't think it's a good way forward to fight each other with financial means when we are close allies and partners."
That makes sense. I mean, you can't just buy and sell countries like they're properties in a game of Monopoly.
Exactly. And Frederiksen went on to say that while she welcomes U.S. interest in the Arctic, it must be done in a way that is respectful of the Greenlandic people. It's a delicate balance, isn't it? Maintaining good relations with a powerful ally while also protecting your own sovereignty and the interests of your citizens.
Speaking of the Greenlandic people, what do they think about all this?
Well, Greenland's Prime Minister, Knut Egede, has also rejected the idea of joining the U.S. It's worth noting that Egede has called for eventual independence from Denmark. But that doesn't mean he's interested in becoming part of the United States. In fact, many Greenlanders are proud of their unique culture and identity, and aren't keen on the idea of being absorbed into another country.
So it sounds like nobody involved actually wants this to happen, except for Trump?
That seems to be the case. But it raises some interesting questions about the future of the Arctic region and international relations more broadly. You see, the Arctic is becoming increasingly important strategically as climate change opens up new shipping routes and access to natural resources.
Oh, I see. So even if the idea of buying Greenland is far-fetched, the interest in the region is very real.
Absolutely. Countries are jockeying for position in the region, and Greenland, with its vast territory and strategic location, is a key piece of that puzzle. It's not just about resources either. There are also concerns about security and military presence in the Arctic. The US already has a military base in Greenland, Thule Air Base, which is important for missile defense and space surveillance.
So this whole situation is really a microcosm of larger geopolitical issues?
In many ways, yes. It touches on questions of sovereignty, international cooperation, climate change, resource competition, and the changing balance of power in the world. Think about it. As the Arctic ice melts, new shipping routes are opening up. The fabled Northwest Passage could become a reality, potentially revolutionizing global trade.
That's fascinating. It's like climate change is literally reshaping the geopolitical landscape.
Exactly. And Greenland is right at the center of it all. It's estimated that Greenland holds vast reserves of rare earth minerals, which are crucial for modern technology. As demand for these minerals grows, Greenland's strategic importance will only increase.
Well, I for one will be keeping a close eye on Greenland from now on. Who knew that this massive ice-covered island could be at the center of such an intriguing international story?
That's the beauty of delving into these kinds of stories. They often reveal connections and implications that we might never have considered otherwise. And they remind us that, in our interconnected world, even seemingly remote places can become focal points of global attention.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think it's time we wrap up this fascinating discussion. Any final thoughts?
I think the key takeaway here is that we should always look beyond the surface of these international incidents. What might seem like an outlandish proposal or a diplomatic faux pas often has deeper implications for global politics, economics, and security. And in an era of rapid change and increasing competition for resources, we're likely to see more unconventional ideas and proposals emerge on the world stage.
Well said. And I suppose we should all be paying a bit more attention to Greenland from now on. Who knows? It might just become the center of the next big international story.
Indeed, it might. And it's not just Greenland. This story highlights the importance of keeping an eye on regions that might seem peripheral, but could suddenly become critically important. The Arctic as a whole, for instance, or other resource-rich areas that have been difficult to access in the past. It's a reminder that in our rapidly changing world, today's remote outpost could be tomorrow's geopolitical hotspot.
It's a lot to think about. And I imagine the story isn't over yet.
You know, I doubt it is. As long as the Arctic remains a region of strategic importance, and as long as there are leaders willing to push the boundaries of traditional diplomacy, we'll likely see more developments in this area. It's a situation that bears watching, not just for what it means for Greenland and Denmark, but for what it tells us about the changing dynamics of global politics.
Well, thanks for breaking this down for us. It's been eye-opening, to say the least.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll leave our listeners to ponder the future of Greenland and the Arctic. Thanks for tuning us, where we bring you the stories that shape our world, one surprising twist at a time.
Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and maybe invest in a good parka. You never know when you might need to visit Greenland.